The chair had my name, but not my place. Folded ivory cardstock soft calligraphy tucked beside a wine glass polished to gleam Marie Callahan. For a moment, it looked like I belonged, until I saw where the chair sat. Back row, far left corner, 2 seats from the dessert table. Between Aunt Nora, who hadn't called me in 8 years, and a woman named Belinda introduced in a group email as Dad's co-worker's cousin. No one from the Callahan head table sat near mine. I paused, blinked once, twice, then turned to the hostess. "Excuse me," I said gently. Then louder to the woman arranging the name cards under gold candlelight, my mother Denise Callahan, dressed in sea glass chiffon and pearls like she owned the vineyard. "There's been a mistake. I thought I was seated with the family." Denise didn't look embarrassed, just mildly inconvenienced. "There were only so many seats at the head table, Marie," she said, smoothing the front of her dress. "We prioritized photos. You're not in any of the recent ones. It just looked disjointed." I took a breath. "That's because I wasn't invited to the last 5 events." She didn't answer. Her lipstick stayed still, smile frozen in polite tension. But her silence said what it always did. "This isn't about fairness. It's about the frame." Across the room, my brother Eric Callahan, 3 years older, fresh from a military deployment and perpetually sunburned, raised his glass. "Seriously," he called out. "You're making a scene about a chair." I didn't look at him. I didn't need to. He'd already taken enough without asking. A few guests shifted uncomfortably. Forks slowed. Conversations stalled. Denise's voice dropped an octave. "Let's not make this night about you," she said low and sharp. "Not again. Not again." As if I had ever been the story. As if I'd had a turn. I turned to Kelsey Callahan, my youngest sister, glowing in coral silk and diamond light. Her eyes met mine for less than a second. She offered a tight smile, the kind that says, "Please don't ruin this." Then she looked away. I had brought a gift. A hand-bound photo album I spent 3 weekends making. Pictures from our childhood hay rides, Halloween costumes, a snowman half melted in the yard. I restored the colors, added notes in my own handwriting. It was wrapped in brown paper with a blue ribbon. Still in my tote bag. Still unopened. My hand rested on the back of the chair with my name on it. I stared at it for a moment, then let go. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I just set the place card down on the plate, turned, and walked out the side doors. The vineyard air was warm and dry. The smell of fruit hung heavy, fermenting under the string lights. My heels clicked softly against stone, the only sound following me as I passed rows of late harvest whites and unlabeled reds. No one called after me. No one came. They wouldn't notice until dessert. And by then, I'd be halfway gone. I didn't drive straight home after the vineyard. Instead, I checked into a roadside motel off Route 9, the kind with flickering vacancy signs and too much gravel in the parking lot. The front desk clerk didn't ask questions. I appreciated that. I was tired of questions I had to answer like they were court depositions. The room smelled like bleach and lemon cleaner. I didn't mind. I needed something that didn't smell like wine or family. I set the tote bag on the chipped dresser. The photo album slid out, spine bent slightly. I didn't open it. Instead, I sat on the bed and let the air conditioner hum over the silence. My mother, Denise, was 22 when she had me. She found out she was pregnant the same week she discovered my father had been sleeping with someone from the insurance office. She told me this once, not as a confession, but as a reason. "You weren't the mistake, Marie. You were the interruption." That was her way of being generous. She didn't leave him, of course. She stayed through 5 more years of shouting and stony breakfasts, then finally kicked him out when Eric turned 10. He was the reason she waited, she said. Children need their fathers, or sons do at least. I used to ask her why she didn't go back to college. She had started a degree in administration. Her answer was always the same. Because I couldn't. You were already here. And yet she never forgot to mention that Eric was born during her best years. Kelsey the miracle baby came later when Denise had something to prove to herself. I was just the middle, the reminder. I don't remember my mother ever holding my hand after the age of 6. I do remember her taking the camera from my hands one Christmas and telling me to step aside so she could get a real family photo. I remember missing from every frame on the fridge. When I was 17, I applied for nursing school. My guidance counselor pulled me aside one day and told me I'd earned a state scholarship. I ran home thrilled, half believing that maybe this would be the thing that made her see me. She didn't smile when I told her. "Eric needs to finish first," she said, barely glancing up from her crossword. "His program is more intensive. He's trying to commission. We'll use your grant to cover what his GI Bill doesn't." I asked her what I was supposed to do. "You're smart, Marie. You'll figure it out." I deferred enrollment, then deferred again. After 6 months of part-time jobs and canceled plans, I packed a duffel bag and left for Nevada with a friend who worked in hospitality. I didn't tell anyone I was going, not even Kelsey. I waitressed nights, worked cleaning shifts during the day. I lived in someone's converted laundry room for $200 a month. I told myself I'd go back eventually once I had money, once I had something to show them. But time passed and the distance became comfortable. Quiet is addictive when you grow up surrounded by noise that isn't meant for you. Still, I tried. 2 years later, I sent my mother a card. No message, just a photo of a winter sunrise and my return address. She never replied. When I called at Christmas, Denise said, "Oh, we weren't sure where you were these days." She passed the phone to Kelsey before I could say anything else. Back in the motel, I pulled out the photo album. I had restored the colors on a picture of me and my siblings at a fall fair, hay bales in the background, caramel apples in hand. I was 12. Eric had his arm slung over my shoulder back when we were still close, before he learned that siding with Denise came with rewards. I looked at the photo for a long time. I couldn't remember who had taken it. I first found out about the loan 6 months before Kelsey's engagement dinner. I'd just been offered a full-time position at the hospital, moving up from night intake to administrative coordinator. It wasn't glamorous, but it was stable. I started looking for a one-bedroom apartment closer to work, no more shared basement, no more mildew in the vents. I'd saved enough for the deposit. For once, I felt ahead of something. Then came the call. The leasing agent was polite, apologetic even. "I'm sorry, Ms. Callahan, but your credit score flagged you for default. There's an open student loan under your name, $35,000 in collections. Originated in 2015. I stood in the break room of the hospital, frozen. "That's not possible," I said. "I never took a loan. I never went back to school." But the records didn't lie. When I pulled the report that night there, it was my name, my social, my date of birth. The application was filled in with details only someone close could know, and at the bottom, a familiar signature, loopy cursive, careful, too perfect to be mine. The co-signer, Denise Callahan. I stared at the document, then at the printout I held in shaking hands. My name had been borrowed, bent, and sold without a word. I didn't cry. Not then. I laid the papers out across the floor of my studio and sat cross-legged beside them like a child at story time, trying to make sense of a plot that never included me. A week later, I drove to her house. It was a Sunday afternoon. The front yard smelled like clipped grass and fertilizer. Denise stepped out in gardening gloves, still holding pruning shears, her hair tied back in a red scarf I remembered from childhood. I didn't raise my voice. I handed her the stack of papers. "Did you do this?" She glanced at them, then at me. Her face didn't flicker. "I did what needed to be done," she said evenly. "Eric needed help. He couldn't qualify on his own, and you weren't using your credit." I blinked. "You took out a loan in my name." "I co-signed," she said as if it made a difference. "It's not theft. It's family. I've made sacrifices for all of you. You think I had a choice when I left my job, when your father walked out. You weren't the only one who lost something. I didn't lose something I said. You gave me nothing." She frowned. "Don't be dramatic, Marie. We helped you when you needed it." When I asked quieter now, "When did you help me?" That was when she turned to go inside, muttering something about ungratefulness and old wounds. I stood in her driveway for another minute, breathing hard, feeling the heat press against my back. Then I turned, walked to my car, and drove away without looking in the rearview mirror. That night, I opened a folder on my laptop. I scanned every document. I saved every screenshot, Eric's old texts, my credit report, even a calendar reminder from the day I found out. And I recorded a voice memo just in my voice describing the conversation word for word before it faded. I didn't know what I'd do with it all yet, but I knew for the first time that I couldn't wait for anyone else to fix this. Not Kelsey, not Eric, and certainly not my mother. This was the part where I stopped hoping for an apology. This was the part where I started preparing for the truth. I didn't send the folder to my mother. I didn't send it to Eric either. I sent it to Marcus Owens, Kelsey's fiancé, 2 weeks before the engagement dinner. I had only met Marcus twice. The first time was at a backyard barbecue last fall when he quietly folded chairs at the end of the night without being asked. He offered me a plate of brownies someone else had made, then stood with his hands in his pockets while the rest of the family pretended not to notice I was alone at the end of the yard. The second time was at the hospital where he happened to be representing a patient in a conservatorship hearing. We made eye contact in the elevator. He nodded once. That was enough. He struck me as someone who noticed things, and more importantly, someone who remembered them. I knew his full name. I'd looked it up when the wedding announcement hit the family group chat I'd never formally been removed from. I found his work email through the law firm's website. It was all public. The email I sent him wasn't dramatic. No greetings, no emotional preamble. Just a line typed late at night in the kitchen, the fridge humming behind me. You're marrying into this family. I thought you should know what that means. The folder attached was clean, chronological. Scanned documents of the federal loan with my forged signature, collection notices, credit reports, screenshots of Eric's texts from 2019 when I confronted him. Chill. Mom signed it. You weren't using the money anyway. There was an audio file my voice recorded the day I stood in Denise's driveway, just after she'd told me I was being dramatic. Another memo quieter caught her on a phone call with Kelsey saying, Marie never finishes anything, not even therapy. Just like school. I didn't expect a reply. Marcus didn't write back the next day, or the one after that. For a full week, the message sat in my sent folder unread, no confirmation. I thought maybe he'd deleted it or decided it was none of his business. I wasn't angry. I'd passed the weight off. What he did with it was his own decision. Then, 3 days before the engagement dinner, a message arrived. Thank you for trusting me. That was it. No questions, no denials, but I read it 3 times. The words were quiet, but they didn't feel empty. I still didn't know what he would do. Honestly, I didn't expect him to do anything, but I'd given the truth to someone whose voice they hadn't learned to tune out. At the dinner, I watched him carefully. He moved with the same calm energy, helped Kelsey into her seat, poured wine for Denise, even chuckled when Eric made a joke about destination weddings. But his body leaned away ever so slightly. His hand hovered over Kelsey's shoulder without resting there. His eyes never wandered for long. Kelsey looked radiant. Candlelight warmed her skin. The coral gown hugged her just right. But she didn't look at me once. Marcus did. 3 times, maybe 4. Not long. Not obvious. Just enough. And I knew. After I left the table, the one tucked beside the dessert cart, and the retired coworker from my father's hardware store, I pictured their drive home. The silence in the car. The way he would grip the wheel lightly but ask, did you know, the way Kelsey would fidget with her bracelet. The way she might say, it wasn't mine to tell, or worse, nothing at all. The motel that night was quieter than usual. No wedding noise, no echoes of music from the reception hall. I unpacked slowly as if trying not to wake something. The photo album I'd made still sat at the bottom of my tote, wrapped in soft craft paper tied with twine. My handwriting on each page looked too careful now, too much like someone begging to be let back in. I didn't open it. I just held it for a minute, then slid it back under my notebook. Not everything needs confrontation. Some truths only need to be heard by someone who will carry them forward, even if they never speak them aloud again. Marcus had seen it now, and that was enough. It was the first time in years that the truth didn't feel like mine alone. I wasn't invited to the family brunch. Kelsey posted a picture that morning, an artful shot of mimosas, pale tulips, and cream-colored linen. The caption said, "Grateful." I sat at a diner across town, stirring sugar into lukewarm coffee, already knowing it wouldn't last. By early afternoon, the texts started. The first came from Aunt Nora. What happened? Why would he do that today? Then from Eric. You think this is funny? You're sick. And finally from my mother. We need to talk. This can't be happening. I didn't respond to any of them. Later, I learned what Marcus had done. He arrived at brunch early, dressed neat-pressed calm, no announcement, no drama. He waited until everyone had sat napkins and lap's forks raised toward quiche. Then he placed a folder on the table, opened it slowly, spoke clearly. "Before we finalize any contracts or guest lists, there's something I need to make clear. Denise, you signed a federal loan using Marie's identity. Eric, you used that money to purchase property. Neither of you informed her or repaid her. Kelsey, you knew." They didn't move, not at first. Then Denise said it was a misunderstanding, that she had every right to help her children. Eric called it ancient history, said Marie was dredging up things to ruin the day. Kelsey cried, but Marcus didn't raise his voice. He simply closed the folder and stood. "I can't marry into a family that calls theft loyalty and silence love." He left his ring on the table, walked out without looking back. I imagined Denise frozen, Eric red-faced, Kelsey mascara streaked. And then I pictured the gift I never gave still in my motel bag untouched. My new apartment was small. Second floor, no elevator, but clean. The windows faced east, and in the mornings the light came in soft and gold like it had nowhere better to be. I moved in 2 days after the brunch. No one offered to help. I didn't ask. There was a folded check waiting in my mailbox, Kelsey's handwriting on the envelope. Inside, half the money from the engagement fund. No note, just one sentence scribbled in pencil. I should have said something. "I'm sorry. I didn't cash it. I placed it in the same drawer as the photo album. Sometimes I opened it just to see if the ink had faded. It never did." Eric texted once. "You ruined everything." I read it without emotion. There was nothing left to ruin. That had been done long before me. My mother sent an email with the subject line "Clarify." In the body she wrote, "I never meant for it to go this far. We were just trying to help Eric get started. I thought you'd understand." I didn't reply. Not because I didn't have words, but because I finally understood that silence could be its own kind of answer. That week, I bought a cheap spiral notebook and started writing. Not about them, but about me. My hands, my voice, what I remembered when no one else was speaking. Every evening, I walked the long way home, past the flower shop that sold bruised roses for $1 a stem, past the deli that remembered my name. For the first time in years, my name felt like something I could say out loud without flinching. A week later, I passed a bridal shop on my way back from the pharmacy. A new window display had gone up lace sleeves, pearl veils, a mannequin posed mid-spin. I paused just long enough to feel the ache behind my ribs. Then I kept walking. I don't know what happened to the wedding venue deposit. I don't know if Denise blamed Kelsey or if Eric ever showed his face again. I don't ask. Sometimes in the evenings I hear her voice in my head, not shouting, just familiar. "You always made everything harder." But the difference now is simple. I don't answer. The check is still in the drawer, the album too. I haven't touched either. But I haven't thrown them away. Maybe they're just paper. Or maybe they're a reminder that even when people fail you completely, some things what you made, what you carried, don't lose their shape. I walk every day now. I write. I water a basil plant that keeps trying to die. I laugh at bad television and let myself like the quiet. I haven't blocked anyone. I haven't forgiven them either. Some stories don't need closure, just distance. And mine finally has that. If your absence ever spoke louder than your presence, I was there too.